guess what? This came out today, like right now. Well, I mean, not literally right now, because you're probably in the future watching this after I wrote and edited everything, but it just came out. And I just watched it. And since I'm a YouTuber now, I guess, which is absolutely insane, thank you for 1,000 subs. I shall bless each one of your toes individually for this honor. But yeah, that's right. You can count on me for the latest in TV. And I want to give you my thoughts on it, especially since NieR isn't on a typical streaming service. It's on Crunchyroll. So maybe it will give you enough info to decide if you want to subscribe to their site to watch it. Quick note to people who may not be familiar with me. Hi, I'm Silly. I love storytelling in all forms that it may come in. I fell in love with NieR Automata a while back, and have been working on a long man of a video for a while now about the game. For more perspective, I have very little exposure to anime, and my only true reason for watching this is because I was such a fan of the game, and I wanted to see how they adapted it. Kind of like if you read a book and they come out with a movie. That kind of feeling. Plus, I figured maybe some people might want to know what it's like. I understand that this POV might not be welcomed by some, and I can understand that. Just know that all my thoughts come from a place of positivity, and I'm not here to try to jump on any bandwagon. But since I don't have a lot of previous exposure with the genre of anime, please take my thoughts with a grain of salt. Who knows, maybe I'm not as alone as I think. So, let's get started. The length of the first episode was roughly 23 minutes long. It wastes no time showing us our beloved 2B and 9S characters. My first thought was, oh snap, this is exactly like the video game intro. If you've played the game, this can be very exciting, especially since they played the music to match. Now, I did not do deep research before watching this, so I was not familiar with how closely they would be following the game's story. But it seems to be that they are lining up the video game and TV show very closely. Very. And as I've been thinking about trying to give it a review, mind you, this is just off of episode 1, I have been torn about the current rate of the adaptation. Meaning, as initially it was very exciting for me, and there were parts that were thrilling to see adapted into a beautifully animated style, personally, I eventually kind of got bored of knowing exactly what to expect. Because mind you, some of these ones aren't just vaguely the same, you can line them up almost perfectly. Now, if what you're looking for is exactly that experience, you'll be able to get that plus a little more. After doing research on the fact, I have been told that it's supposed to vary from the game greatly. However, at this moment in time, I'm not feeling too optimistic for this point, but I will try to keep my hopes up. Here are a few things that I really enjoyed before continuing on. I thought they managed to capture 9S's fun energy really well. His energy came across right away in the initial moments that we see him. If you've played the game, then you'll know what kind of energy I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I think it's a great way to get introduced to his character. Then there was this little part that I found quite funny. It felt like a meta joke, and I'm not sure if it was supposed to be, but I found myself laughing. It's this part after a fight where the pod says it will now be on cooldown for like 13 hours. It just had me laughing as someone who's played the game. And if you haven't, for reference, the pod cooldowns aren't actually 13 hours. It can just feel like 13 hours. Now, I think the graphics can be something that will fall on the negative and positive side, but the parts that were animated, the parts that were drawn out, were beautiful and stunning. I think they did a fantastic job with these. We will move more into some of the potentially weaker animated sections, but at first, I couldn't tell if this was just me, as someone who's not used to much anime, but after reading through the comments, I did find that some others also held a similar opinion that the graphics were a little lacking at times. Well, actually quite lacking for me. As someone who doesn't typically watch anime, it was a little hard to get used to or accustomed to this. By the end, I definitely was a bit more accustomed, but I did find myself craving the animation style because of how beautiful it was in contrast to this, I'm not quite sure what this is called. It reminded me of when Avatar: The Last Airbender changed the style up a bit and they used the computer renditions. I always prefer the ones that have the handmade aspect to them. Again, not sure what they're called, but here, I'll put it on screen. Maybe you can let me know in the comments. The intro music, which I'm unfortunately not really able to play here because of copyright, was really hype. And I found myself like bouncing up and down in my chair. I'm a fan of metal and it gave me a bit of that. So intro music was a big win for me. And then I think my last compliment would be that since it's a TV show format, you are able to spend some more time focusing on the characters and the character relationship of 9S and 2B a bit more. I think it does a good job of allowing those moments and having those. Now, scrolling through the comments, I am a little scared because it seems like this show and game has a very strong fan base, and the game definitely should, but I know my opinion may not be welcomed by some. This show so far has 4.9 out of 5-star reviews. Keep in mind, this is on Crunchyroll, the website, which is a website specifically for fans of anime. But since I hit the 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to try my best to be authentic with how I feel towards media and not let the potential 1 or 2 people that would be a little bit mean prevent me. So here I go. Go put on big girl pants. Here are some of my more negative notes I wrote down while I went about my experience with the first episode of this show. The Goliath boss fight felt a little rushed, at least the first section of it. I feel as though they were trying to match too closely with what the game had done, but were cutting it up and down in size, which caused it to feel a bit choppy. However, there was a positive of this visualization of 9S hacking into the Goliath boss. That's something we didn't experience in the game, and I also thought it was beautifully done. I think this show's biggest potential and also biggest downfall will be how they go about continuing to adapt the game. For me, currently at the rate that it's going, it's just too similar visually. The part that I enjoyed the most were these little puppeteering parts at the end. It was something unexpected and felt like it fit right in. As fun as it was for me to see some of my favorite moments again, it wasn't enough to make me want to keep watching. Now, after thinking about it, I think I might have a unique situation here, since I have spent the last month or so scrubbing through hundreds of hours of gameplay to make a video that I'm not even sure will ever get completed at this point. I kind of know way too many details of the game that maybe other people don't. I would be interested to hear someone's opinion of this anime who has not experienced the game. For me, that would be a very valuable take to hear to understand if the story is making sense, because I'm curious if as a piece of storytelling on its own, if it could stand and make sense and be enjoyable for this type of viewer, because I do think they are relying a bit on the viewer to fill in some of the gaps between each moment. Again, this is only for the first episode, and I will have a video on my final thoughts once the entire series is over. But since I know I will not have enough to say for each episode, I will only be doing an initial thoughts/impressions and then a final thoughts and impressions. So, in summary, my main problem was that I couldn't disconnect it from knowing the game, which at first for me was, like I said, very exciting, and I loved seeing my favorite game animated. But by the end, I was feeling a little too used to it. I wanted something that would add to my experience, and as a result, I think my head was filling in a lot of spaces that maybe kind of needed a bit more filling in. On the positive side, since there isn't gameplay, I did feel like I was able to focus on their characters more than usual. Having the same sound designs was also neat. It definitely hit those nostalgic buttons. Instead of ratioing my video, if you happen to disagree, I would honestly love to hear your opinions. I hope to be a channel that can be a place for discussions about media, especially since I'm not familiar with typical animes. Is this a typical anime? Does it fall into like a certain genre of animes? Because I'm sure there's probably subgenres. It's entirely possible that I'm missing something here. I hope I did not offend anyone with my take. I just wanted to share it because I know that not everyone can afford $9.99 a month to watch a TV show. Now, saying all of this, I will be watching the rest of it and giving it an honest shot. Of course I want it to be great. It's an IP that I absolutely love. again, thank you so much for 1,000 subs. It's unreal. Happy Jelly Bean. Have a wonderful day.